everyone, I'm Rocco, and this is Wilna, and welcome to the WR Experience.
So since last time, we had a couple of questions, and people were asking like, okay, so you guys made your deductions, but what did you use? Because it's quite big. It's quite big decisions that we made. So people were a bit interested, and I told Rocco, I'm like, let's talk about this. How did we come to know or perceive what we do now? Yes.
So, in trading, we track the liquidity flows. So, what liquidity is basically just price movement. There's a couple of ways that we look at charts and a couple of things that move price. The one is news. So, when Trump puts out a tweet, starts a tariff war with China, money flows in, money flows out. The second one is fundamentals. So fundamentals, if I can explain the fundamentals, is if you look at a company and you look at the profit and loss or who the CEO is. For instance, we've recently seen Tesla stock rocket, well, not to space, but I mean in unprecedented heights. And it's because Elon is this charismatic character, this charismatic CEO. And then the last one is the one that we use. It's called technical analysis. So technical analysis is basically, if you've ever heard of algorithms or scripts, it is based on historic data points that we use. And then basically we use mathematics and a couple of if statements. And then we say we can, with a certain probability, say that the price of this market is going to a specific point. And if you go onto my LinkedIn feed, just go to Rocco Stradle and I'll accept you. You can actually see that 2 weeks before the correction happened, I said that it was coming because we could see the turn. The market was at all-time highs and it was losing divergence. So then we sort of could estimate there's a retracement coming. Retracement is a trading term for the market. The price is going to move in the opposite direction. So what the media said at that point was, prices at all-time highs, push, climb in. Now is the best time to invest. And we knew it wasn't. And trading helped us to not only pinpoint the exact moment that liquidity is going to leave the market, but also where it's going to stop, meaning where's the bottom going to be, and help us basically estimate or gauge when this whole event is going to be quote unquote over.
Yes, so basically using that information, the analytics behind the charts and a historic overview. Basically, we looked at history, how history repeats itself, the cycles that it goes through, and we made estimates based on that. So in terms of where the world finds itself at the moment, it's constructed. I don't know if everyone really realizes that there is nothing like a state. There is nothing like a government. There is nothing like anything. Everything in the world is constructed, and it's constructed by certain parties who have certain vested interests. So if you look at the financial system that we currently have, it's based on a set of principles that funds certain interests in certain ways, and then that basically creates this, because it's your countries that hold the power, that push the agenda. So the rest of the world tend to follow with this, like buying something you cannot afford. It's not something that just fell out of the sky.
It was created, basically.
It was created by governments.
Yeah, because for a very specific purpose.
For a very specific purpose.
Okay.
And this whole system, like we saw from 2006 to 2008, the financial crisis, that crisis has never ended. If we look at the current trajectory, the position has not changed globally. And that's what is worrying a lot of people, a lot of governments. You'll see governments asking for they're basically returning their gold to their countries.
That's correct. To the vault.
To the vaults.
Yes.
So in an anticipation of what's going to come.
Well, yes, because if you look at, you said historically, we use historic principles. We go back and look what happened, right?
Yeah.
1971, I think from 1971 or thereabouts, Nixon basically stepped away from linking the US dollar to the gold standard.
Yes.
And from there, it's been downhill all the way until, we are plateauing, right? We're meandering along. USD is losing its value more and more and more. And they're trying to basically, I would say, keep this buffer up or keeping up an appearance of sorts.
So, yes, but it's not above. It's not to say a buffer or this appearance. It's that a whole financial system, a way of doing, a way of making money, everything is built on principles that were thought out at one point and has already proven not to be stable. And it has, we've all heard in the news and the media, we had this bubble and it burst and it's going to be way worse. Well, it is going to be way worse because at the levels that we were at, and we could see it in the charts, we can see it throughout history, this bubble is the bubble that we are in now. And it's just a continuation.
I mean, it's a multiple bubble, right? It's not just one thing. You're talking about houses. You're talking about people that are potentially going to default on their mortgage payments, people that are losing their jobs. I mean, it's
already started.
Yes, but I mean, when we talk about a bubble, it's this picture of one thing. And if this goes wrong, then everything collapses. But what people miss, it's a lot of little things that create this big bubble. So it's not only going to be one event. It's going to be a multitude of things.
Yes, no, we're not going to experience it as one day the sun's not going to shine. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be systematic. So what we've seen throughout the world now is that governments respond in ways that they have previously, in the previous crisis. But they're running out of options because they've done all these things already.
We've seen this play before, basically.
We've seen this play before. So we've had one outcome before. Now, we basically said, okay, so we can anticipate now what is going to happen, the time frames that the charts show us, historically, how these cycles work, and basically say, okay, this is the amount of time we have. This is what we need to do to survive in this time, because you have to survive. We have to respond. Yes.
Well, in order to go forward, you have to go into a survival mode at the moment.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're not gonna come through this in one piece, there's nothing to be. You're not going to be able to grow anything on that.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So basically, I think what you're alluding to is that we need to speak about what we're going to do going forward. It's like, what is our strategy, or how did we decide on what our strategy needs to be going forward?
Yes, so it's firstly responding, which we've covered, I think, more or less in the previous episode. And then it's now, we talked about listening to your clients and actually realizing that needs and demands change, and that you should actually listen to those and come up with products and services that can accommodate these changes. Yes.
Yeah. And not only for a very short period of time, but you're talking about a whole dynamic, a paradigm shift in the way that not only individuals operate, but that companies operate. Because I don't know if you've read in the media, there's a lot of talk about digital currency at the moment.
Yes, there is.
Do you want to talk a bit about what do you know about it? Because it's very fresh, right? It's something the Chinese are experimenting with.
So digital currency, you have your two schools at the moment. The one is the one that America drives is a decentralized version. The currency is not backed up by liquidity.
So it's basically nothing.
It's basically nothing.
Perceived value.
It's perceived value.
Okay.
Then you have what the Chinese are doing. What they are doing is that they are actually linking this currency.
If you can call it that.
Yeah. No, but they're actually treating it as a currency. So it's backed by liquidity. But you don't have your physical, you don't have like a cash dollar. But
So
they're
what
basing
do you
it.
have? If I don't have, if it's not, if it's so it's not physical, right? So it's not I'm giving you physical money.
It's not a physical piece of money.
Yes.
But it's
okay.
backed by liquidity, which is the major
shift. I
shift
guess.
between
okay.
the two. So if you don't have liquidity behind something, it has no real value. It's only based on a perceived value. So I think Bitcoin and these guys
People are going to shoot you if you say Bitcoin because they are ardent supporters of what they classify a decentralized currency, which they're calling Bitcoin. But what is interesting for me in the whole discussion is that Bitcoin is seen as this private thing, as opposed to the Federal Reserve running a digital currency.
Yeah, so in China, you have your central bank is backing the digital currency.
Really?
They are centralizing it. In America, your the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with Bitcoin.
No, they won't. Because how can you link Bitcoin to the US dollar? You can't. But also that means...
Unless it's backed by something, by some liquidity.
Interesting.
And that's the big difference between the two at the moment. And an interesting take on this as well is basically control. So if you think about an economy, you think about money moving, it's about who has control.
Correct.
Over the money.
And who basically decides what it's worth.
Yes. So centralizing that entire process, decentralizing it. The decentralization is a lot how the fiat currency is currently, this whole bubble that we are in is structured because you have different role players. You have private role players that push the agenda.
I was about to say they're starting to push the agenda, right? They're starting to push the narrative. Governments are evil.
You have your investors.
Yes.
You have your different facets.
Yes.
The Chinese model is only centralized. It's only their centralized bank.
Wow.
That's actually backed up by liquidity.
Sorry, but that means that Bitcoin will never work in China.
No, it's banned.
We need to fact check that. But
I think it's true.
well, if you're going and you're saying that we're talking about a digital currency, right? Then we as people and businesses need to basically change our way of operating. But how do you change it if you don't even know what you're changing it into?
If we can anticipate
Yes.
and say that in a global time of crisis, you would move to something that is certain.
Like gold, for
Like
instance.
gold. That's why countries are recalling their gold.
Correct.
If you want to move to something that is certain, like gold, would you support a currency based on a system that is run by different interests?
Well, it would depend if I'm a citizen of that country. And I think that's what... Well, the Chinese have a distinct advantage. Because their political system, their authoritarian system. I mean, okay, they call themselves a democracy. Let's not go into that.
Centralized system.
Well, it allows them to
Yes.
push these changes and these narratives upon their people as if you
Yes.
would have a choice. You're not going to be able to do that in a Western society.
Not in a Western society, but anywhere else where you cannot trust your
Oh,
government.
yeah, that's correct.
If you cannot trust your government and you know, listen here, I can put my money there and it's actually worth something.
Okay.
So what that basically says is that it can move to a system where people would adopt that
Yes, I'm
if
with
it is
you.
backed up.
So currently,
If you talk just about digital currencies,
yes.
yes, in
Because
isolation,
yes, but I mean that it looks like we are moving in that direction.
yes,
I'm not saying anything else.
no,
It's the same financial system, but how do fiat currencies and digital currencies coexist in the same space?
So your two models is actually, should the Chinese model be backed up completely?
Okay.
You have a type of a gold standard by just way of expression.
Okay.
And with your Bitcoin or those other types that are just run
Yeah,
on
Ethereum.
different interests,
Correct.
etc., etc., that's more fiat currency. So everywhere in the world, you see the discussion starting towards accepting a digital currency, but that's actually backed up by something.
Okay.
And countries are not they're focusing all their attention on COVID, all their money on it, and not really thinking about what's going to happen, what's coming. We spoke about this car crash previously.
Yes.
The car's going to crash.
It's a given.
It's a given. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. How prepared are you going to be? How prepared are you going to be in terms of, is your money safe where it is? Is it
That's
tied
the
up in
question.
some institution that can just be, that has been bailed out by your central government, by your reserve bank? Is it going to be sustainable? So with all these changes in mind, basically keeping it in the back of your mind, you have to take everything and combine it. So we have a timeline. We have history showing us. And now we have to say, okay, is our money safe? We made certain changes that we spoke of previously. How do we survive in this time? How do we move forward? So taking all of these different things together, that's the tricky part, because how do you balance?
What you have, your current position, and where do you want to go,
And what's going to happen?
and what's going to happen.
And how that's going to affect, well, everything.
I would keep a very close eye on the, I mean, I say Chinese, but it's not only the Chinese. It's more the Asian economy,
No, it's two.
and
You have two clear schools of thought.
yes, and it's which interest,
And it's your two
Are gonna win.
superpowers.
right? Because
Yes.
it's an interest.
Yeah.
So it depends if the Asian interest is larger than the American interest.
And not interest per se, but also that they have to work together. But it's just, so if people ask us, where do we get the information from? That's basically, it's all these different things that we take and we say, okay, this is what we're using. This is how we're
Yes.
moving forward. This is the WR.
Yeah, well, so
Experience.
at the WR Capital Online Trading Academy, we teach a holistic way of trading and investing, where we use technical and analysis combined with our knowledge to give you a bigger picture of the world. If that's something that you ever would like to come and check out, we'll post the information on our social media links. Also, you can visit us at www.wrcapital.co.za. Thank you for watching the WR Experience. Cheers.